The World Naked Bike Ride happened this weekend across 80 cities around the world. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is the World Naked Bike Ride? Yes, folks, adult men and women bared it all, wore nothing, and pedaled on bikes across cities to celebrate cycling and the human body, according to its website, but also to demonstrate the vulnerability of cyclists on the road and as a protest against car culture. Folks, I could not make this up. I still struggle with why people have to be naked, but here's what the Daily Mail said. Hundreds of nude cyclists descend upon Buckingham Palace for the 20th World Naked Bike Ride, with only a few wearing helmets. Hundreds of naked cyclists dared to bear it all as they descended on London to raise greater awareness of climate change on Saturday. So we can see there's a lot of movements within the movement. And again, folks, I could not make this up. No body shame. There's a lot happening. Now, I don't want to judge, but in Canada, and I'm certain around the world, there are laws against public indecency, specifically against public nudity. Now, here in Canada, there actually is a criminal code against public nudity. I didn't know that people didn't know this, but there is. Section 174 in our criminal code addresses three main areas. Nudity in a public place. It's illegal to be nude in a public place or while exposed to public view. A public place may include any place to which the public has access as of right or by invitation, express or implied, and any place exposed to public view. Seems pretty obvious, right? Well, there are exceptions to this, surprisingly, in the criminal code. There are exceptions for nudity in certain contexts, such as performances or artistic exhibitions where nudity is part of the artistic expression. These are not deemed to be indecent. That's the only exception that apparently the criminal code makes. Now, I reach out to my legal scholars out there. I don't think the World Naked Bike Ride is an artistic expression. In fact, on its website, it says it's an actual protest. And I don't think there's an exception for protests in the criminal code. Indecent acts. It's illegal in Canada to commit an indecent act in a public place in the presence of one or more persons or in any place with an intent to insult or offend any person. Now, folks, I was just walking down the street on Saturday in downtown Toronto, and yep, the naked bike ride zoomed by me. And I looked back. I tried not to look, but there were many older men and women completely naked riding bikes. Folks, you can imagine my disgust is the right word, because there were children around. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Christopher, why are you talking about the children? This is about celebrating cyclists and highlighting the vulnerability of cyclists on the road. Let me pause there. I'm a cyclist. I cycle every day to work. I do it not necessarily for the environment, but because it's the most efficient way to get around the city. So I fully am aware of the vulnerability cyclists face to other motorists. I don't understand why people need to be naked to do that. I just don't understand why being naked needs to highlight the vulnerability of cyclists. Just do a massive bike ride with everyone clothed. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do a bike ride to highlight these issues clothed? Now, you might be asking, why am I bringing up the children? Well, it turns out, goes without saying, young children exposed to the naked bodies of adults, there's a reason why many of us are against that notion. Without even looking at the research, just no naked adult should be around children. Period. Just point blank, period. Naked men around young girls should never, ever be allowable. And this is the descent. I'd like to think I'm quite progressive. I'd like to think that, but this is the descent, I think, into madness that many critics of progressive thought, have. Where are the boundaries? It's not blasphemy. It's not um, lacking progressiveness, non-progressive. To say to ourselves, there needs to be bumpers around what we're pursuing in public policy, specifically when it comes to public indecency, right? I mean, help me understand what nudity has to do with raising awareness about the vulnerability of cyclists to car culture. Right now, I think it's just the ostentatious nature of being naked on a bike and showing like this is how vulnerable we are. But there's no thought given to the psychological impacts this is having on not only children, but there could be people who have been sexually assaulted and they see a naked man or a naked woman, or they see people just naked. That could be very traumatizing. Again, I can only imagine what that might do to a person. And now it only was for 4 hours on a Saturday afternoon in downtown Toronto, but it's just I think this is precisely where a lot of conservatives gain more power in their arguments against progressives, because progressives, I think, don't know when enough is enough, right? Like, there's something to be said about doing this fully clothed versus being naked. And I feel like a lot of progressives feel like it's not progressive to call this type of behavior out. In any other context, this should be called out. But in this context, progressives seem to be completely okay with it. And I just wonder why. Just think of that. A naked man walking down the street would be criminally charged. But in this context, that naked man is not. And I just don't understand why nudity has to be attached with raising awareness about the vulnerability of cyclists. There are much more PG ways of doing that instead of this. My solution to this is quite simple, I think. I mean, rent an event space with a bike loop or a track, make it 19 plus, ticket the event, have people pay, and let that go to the organization that's running World Naked Bike Ride. I mean, it's out of public sight, it's out of public, it's contained to those who are 19 and above. I just find it odd that we're talking about this. I just find that I'm talking about this. But let me know what you think. I would love to know what you think about the World Naked Bike Ride. Am I, exaggerating? Am I overreacting? I do think there's a level of public decency that should be upheld. I don't think it's wrong for us as a society to question these things. I think it's healthy for us to. And I think also the other thing to all of this are the civil society is not just made up of progressive valued organizations. There's religious groups, cultural groups who would see this and would be just flippant about it, just be so upset by it. And their voices matter as well. So a robust civil society has voices from all over the spectrum, not just progressive voices. And I would argue that many progressives would not agree with World Naked Bike Ride, especially if they have children, young girls in particular, being exposed to older naked men. Let me know what you think about the World Naked Bike Ride. Do you think this is an appropriate response to raising awareness about the vulnerability of cyclists in our car cultures across the globe? Let me know what you think in the comment section below.